All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Northern Now, the digital event series presented by NMU Alumni Relations for Alumni and Friends. My name is Kylie Bunting. I'm the Director of Alumni and Foundation Communications here at NMU, and I'm so glad that you have joined us for tonight's presentation. We're excited to continue this series and to celebrate Women's History Month, but first I just want to go over a couple of logistics. So while we are unable to see and hear you in this webinar format, we still want to hear from you. So we'll be monitoring the Q&A function, so be sure to ask any questions or comments for our panelists. Go ahead and put them in there. You also can use the chat function at the bottom of your screen, and that's a way to chat with fellow alumni who are tuning in. Note that the chat window, there's a drop-down menu to send chats to hosts and panelists or to everyone. It's defaulted to hosts and panelists, so make sure you're changing that so everybody can chat along with you. Some upcoming events that we have, our next Northern Now will be on April 12th as we host a special digital event featuring NMU's new head football coach, Shane Richardson, who is also an NMU alumnus. And the event will be moderated by Steve Mariucci and have some special appearances by Rob Salah and Rick Comley. I also want to mention that if you are an NMU Global Campus student or alum near the Grand Rapids area, NMU Global Campus is hosting a meet and greet on April 6th. You can find out more information on our Facebook page or Global Campus's Facebook page about that as well. And save the date, homecoming this year will take place Friday, September 15th through Saturday, September 16th. I also want to just take a quick moment to mention Wildcats Connect, which is a platform for alumni and students to ask and offer advice. It's a great way to help out NMU students stay connected to the university and get in touch with your fellow alumni. So you can find out more about that on our website as well. And then as always, keep in touch with us on social media. That's where you can find out about other upcoming events and things that we have going on. So I'm thrilled to introduce tonight's panelists, and I'm really excited for this conversation. And a reminder, please feel free to share any of your questions for the panelists in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So first, I would like to introduce Amber Libby, who's a 2010 political science and pre-law graduate. Amber is currently the attorney magistrate at the 89th District Court in the county of Sheboygan. Well, welcome, Amber. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Kylie, and hello, everyone. Good evening. Again, as Kylie stated, my name is Amber Libby. I'm an attorney magistrate, as she stated, in Sheboygan County. I graduated from law school in 2016. I became a licensed attorney in 2017 in the state of Michigan. And I'm originally from Marquette. I graduated from Marquette Senior High School in 2006. Majority of my family still reside there, so I try to get home as often as possible. But my family currently reside in Sheboygan, Michigan, and I have 3 kids. My oldest is 16, my middle is 12, and my youngest is 10.
Great, thank you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Roxanne Dost, a 1994 Accounting and Computer Information Systems graduate. Roxanne's currently the CEO at Range Bank here in Marquette. Welcome, Roxanne. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Great to be here. I am an Upper Michigan native. I actually began my career as a teller, and I worked in banking when I was going to Northern. After graduating, I decided I wanted to try something different. So I tried the CPA world for a few years, and I decided I missed banking. I've been at Range Bank for 25 years now, and in my current position for about 5 years. I really enjoyed watching the bank grow. When I first started, we were about a $60 million bank, and now we have assets under management of over $1 billion. I currently live in Marquette with my husband. I have 2 grown boys and a stepdaughter, and with 5 grandchildren, and the 6th on the way.
Great, thank you for joining us. Next, I would like to welcome Amanda Rosenberg, who is a 2007 psychology graduate. Amanda is currently the team lead and head of research at Google Classroom. Welcome, Amanda. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda. As mentioned, I graduated from Northern in 2007 from the psychology department. And then I went on to Columbia University Teachers College to get my master's and my doctorate, my master's in developmental psychology and my doctorate in instructional technology and media. While I was there, I had an amazing opportunity to work with Alice Wilder, who was one of the creators of Blue's Clues. And through that introduction and work, I went on to do a lot of work in children's television, specifically on Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, as well as Super Why. From there, I went on to spearhead a startup where I took on the position of director of learning, where we created manipulatives or physical toys that children could use on tablets. And my job was figuring out how we can make this an educational experience for kids. And after that, I found myself at Google, where I've been now for 6 years, leading classroom for the last 4, kind of shepherding us through COVID. And here I am now.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Actually, Steve from Blue's Clues is on campus tonight. Fun fact. It's at the Northern Center right now. Also, Amanda is a 2020 Young Alumni Award recipient too. So just another accolade to add to the list. And then last but certainly not least, I'd like to welcome Carol Johnson. Carol graduated from NMU in 1981 with a bachelor's in accounting, and then again in 1989 with an MBA. She's currently the Dean of the College of Business here at Northern Michigan University. Welcome, Carol. Go ahead and tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you so much, Kylie, and thank you for inviting me to participate. It's really an honor to be with such an amazing group of women. I'm in awe. I'm a lifelong resident of Marquette. I've been married for 36 years to my husband, Roger. I have 2 adult children, Lucy and Ben. I'm a dog mother of Rusty, and Rusty is a kind of a dropout, but he is a wild pup in training. We have a program on campus for therapy dogs, so he's a wild pup in training. I had a career prior to coming to Northern in healthcare. I got an accounting degree and I worked in healthcare for 10.5 years. And then I did some practice management and then got the teaching bug. And I've been at Northern for 25 years. And for many of those years, I was a professor and then moved into administration and have one of the best jobs on campus. So I'm very fortunate. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us. And I want to echo what Carol said, that it's really an honor to be joined by such amazing women. So we really appreciate you taking this time, and I'm excited to jump into some conversation. So as I said, anybody tuning in, feel free to send any questions that you have in the Q&A function. I'll be taking a look at that. But until we have some audience questions, I'm going to start with a few questions that we have prepared here. So we'll start out with how you feel that your education at NMU prepared you for your career. And I will start with Amber.
Thank you, Kylie. I think my education at Northern prepared me well, not only because of the rigors of the courses that I had, but also because I experienced at Northern specifically the balance between the classroom and life, and specifically nature. And the reason I say that is oftentimes I'd find myself in class and within minutes at Sugarloaf or on the shores of Lake Superior. And I think that prepared me well to balance life. And after NMU, I actually proceeded on and pursued a master's in public administration at Central. And at that time of life, I was working full time. I was also a mother. And so that balance certainly was less of a ability to, hit nature, as often as I wanted, but specific to my experience at Northern, that part really stuck, and very much so now I instill in my kids the value of balance and being able to, have time committed to achieve your goals, but also live. So I think that's certainly unique from my education there at Northern. And as an example, I'm currently in British Columbia with my family, enjoying nature here. So I think that my education at Northern certainly jettisoned me to pursue other higher education, but also to keep it balanced.
Great. Roxanne, I know you also have a little bit of a non-traditional experience at NMU. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you feel it did prepare you for the role that you are in?
Sure, I really do feel like Northern helped me gain the confidence that I needed, because some of the classes that I had in high school, I really didn't do a great job at those. And I actually received a degree in accounting and computer information systems, which were not my highest grades in high school. So I feel like it really gave me a lot of confidence to realize that, hey, you can struggle with things, but you can really, if you work hard, you can accomplish your goals. And the other thing that I feel like it helped me with is teamwork, because I realized working on some of the teamwork projects at Northern that having a good, strong team and relying on some of your team members to help you reach great decisions was really positive to me. So I feel like those are a couple things that helped me along the way.
Great. This is always a fun question to ask too, because I think that we have a lot of alums who are doing something completely different than what they thought they were going to do at NMU, but they still have some of those skills, or those skills have translated into the things that they are doing now. Amanda, can you talk a little bit about how what you thought you would be doing when you were an NMU student, and how that might be different than what you are doing now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love education. My goal was to graduate from Northern, go and get my doctorate and become a professor. Like, I actually dreamt of coming back to teach at Northern. And as I went through my doctorate, I realized that, teaching jobs at universities are really hard to find, and that maybe it would do me well to like pair academics, but with real world experience in terms of like internships and getting out into the field and really understanding how research was being applied to television shows and product development, and thinking of like how I could fit in and bring like this academic lens to it. Well, as I went through my doctorate, the reality set in that finding a tenured track professor position, it was very hard, and you needed a lot of flexibility. And as a single mom, unfortunately, I didn't have that. But luckily, I had that forward thinking to want to start to think beyond the university, and it allowed for me to transition nicely into more of like a corporate space. But what is, I think, unique is that because of that background, I bring a kind of an academic lens to the research that I'm doing. So even though I'm not at a university and teaching, I am still doing the things I would have been doing there within my role to an extent.
Yeah, awesome. Carol, same question. When you were at NMU, did you ever think this is where you would get to?
Not at all. I actually had my 22-year-old self thought I would be an accountant. When I graduated, I loved accounting in high school, and I thought that's what I will do. And it was very interesting. I grew up in a family of educators. I started to do education seminars and workshops for people within my healthcare environment, and I found out I really enjoyed teaching. And so you really, all of a sudden you say, I'm going to pivot. And life happens. I had 2 kids. My husband was traveling for a living. I was looking for a schedule that was a little more conducive and family friendly. And it worked out that I came back to Northern, and I have a dream job as a professor, working with students and then moving into administration. So yes, this was not a journey I had envisioned for myself at all. But it's been a wild journey. And I think you mentioned it, Amber, your education enables you to think outside the box and try things. challenge yourself. Roxanne, you said gives you the confidence. So that preparation enables you to do something maybe you hadn't thought about. So it's just amazing. I'm so pleased to be back here. I have been for 25 years and I love my job.
Great. Something that I think we all just have in common is that that balance, right? We have families, we are all mothers, some single mothers at some point, but all have some have been able to, you know, get us to these positions, and you guys have been able to work your way through while still maintaining that balance. I know that you talked a little bit about it, but what what sort of work-life balance, how is that achieved for you, or how do you make sure that you really keep that in mind? Because having, you know, having these high positions, it is, I'm sure, a demanding place for all of you to be in. But at the end of the day, you know, you've got families as well. So how do you feel like is the best way you have been able to achieve work-life balance? Or if you'd like to be honest and say that you haven't figured it out yet, that works too. But anything that you can add to that, I'll let anybody jump in who wants to go first with that question.
Go
ahead.
Okay if thank you, Carol. For me, actually, one of the things I have really embraced in my life is that there is truly no balance. I call it work-life trade-off. There are moments in my life where work needs a little bit more love. And then there are moments in my life where my family does, or I do, or a situation does, and really not holding that guilt of having to put my attention in a different place, and offering myself some grace, because I think one of the reasons why it's hard to find, you know, that the space to put energy in different areas is because we feel guilty that we have to do it all. And the reality is we can't. During COVID, I was working 12 to 13-hour days because Google Classroom was the software, it was the piece that was bringing students and teachers together when they could not communicate. And my son, who was 12, was actually doing at-home schooling at that point. And so for me, I had to be realistic of like, this is a tough situation. And you know what? You're going to drop a ball every now and then, and it's okay. Just pick it up and keep going. And honestly, it has allowed for me to like grow in ways that I didn't think was possible by just like really owning that, you know, we can't do it all.
I totally agree, Amanda. I think the idea of grace, and grace with others also, to recognize that we may not know what their particular situation is as well. And in doing the best we can, and moving on, you know, you'll spin plates as best you can, but there will be times when somebody at some point, you know, you may let somebody down, and that guilt is something we all kind of deal with. There is only 24 hours in a day, and you have to do your best to keep yourself healthy and to be able to be productive in your professional life and in your personal life. So that's what I agree with you 100%.
I would just quickly jump in, Kylie. I would echo Amanda and I would echo Carol. I would say after my years as a lawyer that work-life balance does not exist. It's priorities. So you prioritize what you can in that hour or that minute, and then you move on to what your next priority is. And I completely echo Amanda. It took me years to learn to give myself grace because I wasn't being perfect on all of the spectrums that I needed to be. And I think that's a pressure unique to women in some aspects. But I'm learning, and I'm trying to put that learning into practice, which is prioritizing versus expecting full balance. So, yeah.
And I'm actually pretty excited to be a leader in an organization in this day and age, because I can tell you 25 years ago when I started in banking, we did not talk about balance in life. I mean, it was really the expectation that you would work long hours. And now as a leader in a company with a lot of women, my focus is really making sure that they realize that, hey, work isn't everything. Sometimes you have to give a priority to your personal life, and we're fine with that because work will still be there. I know that they're dedicated people, so they're going to get the work done. And it's just been nice to see the change in the working world since in the last 25 years, I've really enjoyed seeing those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Holly would like to know if anyone has advice for someone that was excelling towards leadership, but then hit a plateau due to having a family and is ready to get back on the leadership track. Anyone care to jump in? Amber, coming in?
Absolutely. Holly, I would say that, whatever your path is, certainly whatever goals you're trying to achieve, whether they're categorically leadership or not, whatever makes you feel like you're achieving in that day, in that month, and that year, you are doing it. And so I think that, part of my story is that I became a mother at 18. And so I had faced a point during my education at Northern where I felt that maybe, the expectation was that I am no longer supposed to be in the academic realm. I'm supposed to head down this path now. But I certainly had leadership goals for myself at that point. And Northern in particular, I feel, gave me the opportunity to access what I needed to keep going. Whether that meant to slow down, take a step back, reprioritize, and just keep moving. I think that part of what I've learned is that striving towards leadership isn't one big, huge jump and you're a leader. It's every single tiny step that you can make every single day, every single class, every single degree. One of my favorite things I learned during a specialized law enforcement training recently was just do a thing. This test is just a thing, just do a thing. And so I think that being a leader isn't just one day you're a leader, it's all those increments that you took positively towards your goal along the way.
I would also say that the idea of everyone's journey is different and everyone's experiences are different, and what you can take away from those and use them to either help you improve. I would say we're all a work in progress. I'm 64 years old and I still find that I'm learning different things and different techniques. So having a family or taking a step out for a period of time, it shouldn't be a deal breaker for anyone. In fact, you may gain some valuable experience in what you're doing in that period that's really valuable in some type of a position in the future. So I think, embrace that and try to use it to your advantage.
Awesome. Kylie would like to know, not me, Kylie, another Kylie, would like to know, how have you built confidence and or resiliency over the course of your career? Amanda?
Sure. I actively, this is something that I've been doing over the last 4 years. I actively have like a career coach who is also a mindfulness coach. And I have built mindfulness routines into my day-to-day practice of just like, if I'm in a meeting and I find that I'm getting like agitated about the way someone is like talking to me or something along those lines, I've been able to figure out how to manage those feelings in a way that I don't take on that as a, are they thinking of me in this particular way, or have I messed up? So really knowing who you are and what you bring to the table and owning it. And I find that a lot of, especially young women, don't really do that as they enter into their career. And I think it really takes moments where you have to stand up for yourself and really know your value and like set a boundary with some people around you, because people will push and try to like come in and make you feel less than, especially as a woman leader. It's unfortunately, even subconsciously people do it. And so by having this ability to remain resilient in those moments and throughout your career, it actually gives you that strong step forward, where how other people are thinking about you, unless it actually improves your performance, doesn't really matter.
Great. Roxanne, do you want to add to that?
Sure, and I think just grabbing opportunities. I mean, don't be afraid to jump in and say, hey, I'll take on that project, or I'll help out with something, because I feel like everything that you do that just helps you grow can be positive to your future and can help you, move to the next level. So continue challenging yourself, and don't be afraid to challenge yourself, because sometimes it may not work out 100%. But that's okay if you learned a few things along the way. And I've also had a career coach, and I think it's been really great for me in this past year to just have somebody to talk to, because it's hard when you're a woman in a leadership role to find those great mentors that are going to, tell you like it is and kind of help you reach that next level. So anytime you can find a great mentor, whether it be a career coach or a friend or another coworker, reach out to them and just gather your group of people that are positive and will help you move on.
Great. Lucy would like to know, what kind of unexpected gender challenges have you encountered as a woman in leadership? Anyone want to jump in on that one? Amber?
That's a good question, Lucy. I entered into a field that's largely male dominated. I don't know statistically how much it is still today, but as a lawyer in Michigan, especially in criminal law, I've noticed there are inherent treatment or expectations towards lawyers who are women. And the reason I say that is because of actual commentary or actual aspects of being in a courtroom alongside a male peer. There can be circumstances where your gender is used to minimize your position in the courtroom, or it's used to make you feel as though you have to work harder, or say more, or say less, or say it in a different inflection in order to be heard in the same capacity. So I think there are certain careers and certain approaches to leadership positions that women hold that they have to compensate in ways that are unexpected. And from my experience in the courtroom, there have been those surprising ways where in a trial, in front of a jury, when someone's commenting, particular defense attorney in closing arguments will comment about your looks or something as an advantage for the government, as I was previously a prosecutor. And so things like that are just a battle that you have to address on your feet that you weren't necessarily expecting.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one before I move on? Amanda?
Yeah, I'll jump in quickly. I think one of the things that I have found most fascinating is watching gender dynamics in meetings, especially in tech companies that are predominantly male. So what I've noticed is that almost out of default, women are asked, can you take notes, right? Can you take notes of this meeting? And what ends up happening is the person taking notes can't actually contribute. So their voice is being silenced by this task that seems so simple, and it's not a conscious thing people are doing. Then what ends up happening is that person kind of becomes the default. And then before you know it, their feedback that they're getting is that you're not contributing in meetings. And so as I started to see things like this happen, I started to put in structures, even though I wasn't a lead, like in the lead position that I was in, where I would rotate meeting notes. And if I saw that it was defaulting to someone else and they weren't having space to speak, I would make sure that they were given space to speak at the end of meetings. And I really started amplifying voices in the room, not just mine, but those of other women, because when we find our own voice, it's so important that we make sure those that are around us have the space to find theirs too. And so for me, it's just seeing those subtle cues that make those power structures live on and start to kind of bring them down a bit, right? And make it more of an even playing field. So that's just like one example that I've seen and approached in how we deal with it.
And I'm also in a very male dominated field in banking. And it wasn't that long ago that I was the only woman in the leadership team that we had built. So one thing that I've accomplished in the last couple years is we have a leadership team that has 4 men and 4 women. So I'm really excited about the dynamics that we found with having kind of that match of, it wasn't done on purpose. The best person really got the job, but I do feel like there are some great women in banking and they just need a little bit more help. And so it's been a kind of a fun journey to have that balance within our leadership team that I feel is really great for our business, actually.
I echo what Roxanne was saying. I am the first woman that has been named Dean of Business in Northern's history. So it was interesting starting with that. And one of my goals when I first started was culture, to have the kind of culture in our college where everybody has an opportunity to contribute at the same time, or not at the same time, but equally. And we worked really hard at how we run meetings. And I'm very conscious of what happens with respect to our culture. And there are times when I will stand up and say, no, this is not how this is going to go. And this is the way it's going to be. So I think it is important to recognize everybody and make sure that the entire team has an equal say in their contributions and nobody gets kind of silenced. I think that's important.
Absolutely. How did you navigate power structures early in your career versus later in your career when you had more of a formal leadership role? So kind of piggybacking off of what we were just talking about, but how did you make these strides maybe earlier on as opposed to now when you're holding these higher positions? Anyone want to start out? Amber?
I would just echo Roxanne's earlier comment. I think it goes back to confidence. And I think that I feel fortunate to be, in a leadership position now in today's times, because I feel confident to have a seat at the table because I've earned it. So it's okay for me to acknowledge, the banter and the things that do occur every single day. But I think that the confidence to know that you can be where you are, there's no reason why you can't. So I think I would echo Roxanne's approach to that aspect of leadership.
I think for me, it was where I was getting advice. Early on in my career, it was mostly like friends that I had from like childhood or from college that didn't have a lot of experience. And I would go to them for advice because that's who I had. But as I have really gotten into my career and have grown, my bench of people I turn to is deep. And these are strong women who have been through it. I mean, like retired tenure professors from New York University to children's television producers. And so when I find that I'm in a really tough position and I need just someone to kind of help realign me and come up with a game plan, I now have a deep bench of people I can choose from and I can pick based on what I'm going through. And so I think one of the things I wish I was told very early on was start building that bench, start making those connections and really developing those relationships, because those are the people that are going to come in and give you that advice that's going to let you really flourish and like know that you are capable of handling these really tough positions. They become your cheering squad. And there's nothing better than having that when you are going through it and you're trying to grow in your career as a woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
I found for me, one of the things I did too is I earlier on in my career, I made sure I learned a lot about the organization, its processes, and I did the work so that when I became an administrator, I had more credibility also, so that people knew I understood curriculum development, I understood the university processes, and then I could contribute on that level. So that helped me too, is I had a great foundation and I had done the work earlier in my career that I then, when I moved into a leadership position, I did have that credibility and relevance, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm with Carol. I worked my butt off when I first started out in banking, and it was a lot of work, but I do feel like just gaining that experience from the ground up and knowing the organization from the ground up has really helped out a lot, and feeling like I can be at that table because I have the knowledge base that I need to make those decisions.
Great. Peggy would like to know, how has technology helped or advanced or challenged your role?
I love technology and I feel like I embraced it from the very beginning. And I think that really helped me to become kind of the expert at the technology front. I'm not the expert anymore. I'm lucky to have great people that, have continued to grow in that role. But I do feel like embracing technology from the very beginning really gave me an edge up, because I could get things done quicker. I may not have had all the knowledge in my head at the very beginning, but I knew where to find the answers to things. And that's helpful to just get the job done.
I agree. I think the educational aspects of technology, and I was an early adopter of online education. I did what I needed to do to learn all the new tools and processes that were out there. So I agree. I think that, and that's the world we're living today. And in education, business has to remain relevant, and we have to be able to teach what people are using in the real world. So I believe technology is a great help. Doesn't replace everything, but it can be a great tool for many things that we do.
And I would say, Peggy, just me personally, I think technology made it so that I had more opportunities than I would without it. And what I mean by that is, as a mother and working full time since I was 18 years old, when I was living in Marquette, I could access my classes, but from there forward, I was certainly taking advantage of online courses where I could. My law school education was brick and mortar. I was in my law school every week, but my subsequent Master of Law program, I was able to complete a portion of that using, remote classroom learning. And then I'm currently defending dissertation on my PhD program, and that's been a remote program as well. And so I think that doors that I would have closed academically for myself, given the commitment of being in a brick and mortar institution, I've had the opportunity to continue given technological advances. So.
Great. What do you do for self-care? Anyone have time for a little me time?
It's one of my top priorities every day, because I know if I do not take my time in the morning, I actually wake up at like 5:30 and I work out for a good 30 minutes, and then like make sure that I get a good 20 minutes of meditation in. It's impossible to do it throughout the day for myself, so I need to figure out a time, and the morning is the easiest, where no one can find me or bother me. But I know that when I do not give myself my me time to actually center myself and make myself feel my strongest, I am not giving my A game when I step foot inside the building to do my work. And there are hundreds of millions of children and teachers globally depending on my A game. So the way I kind of like convinced myself that I needed to do this was for them, which was my entry in. And then once I was in, I was like, no, this is for me, because I am just as important as each and every person that I am building for every day. So really making sure you have some time and really prioritizing it, and whatever it is that brings you joy or sparks excitement in your life or brings you a sense of peace is worth the investment of your time, regardless of what job you have.
So Amanda, I'm a 5:30 riser also. And I agree with you 100%. I've also recently started yoga. My daughter has shamed me into becoming a yogi, but I'm really embracing it because I think it's really good for me on a couple of different levels. I also like to hit a golf ball. And I'm a dog walker. So I like the outdoors like you do, Amber. So I think there are those things that a person has to decide, how do I reload? How do I refresh? And also too, I think we have to eat right and we have to get good sleep, because we're not good without any of that. And I also am highly caffeinated. So I like my coffee too. So that's my routine.
Just following up on what Carol said, making sure we have the time is extremely important, but the maintenance is so much easier than trying to come back from burnout. And I know this personally, it is so much harder to come back after neglect than it is just to maintain. So if you're having trouble starting, use that as your motivation, because it is difficult to find that way back once your nervous system is completely shot.
Lucille would like to know, would you recommend involvement in nonprofit organizations for upcoming women leaders? See some,
I
Yeah.
do think that being involved in nonprofits is good for your soul, because you feel like you're doing something great for your community and it's kind of separate from your job. So I think that that's definitely important, and also you make connections in that world also that help you with your career. So I know Lucy, she's a big advocate of helping the community, and I'm right with her on feeling how positive that is.
I thought that might be Lucy. Lucy's active in Zonta as I am, and Roxanne used to be. I think those things are extremely important. We're in a world that's greater than ourselves, and we have the opportunity to do things that impact your community, especially certain service clubs. I know, Roxanne, you do a lot, and I'm sure you folks do too. We support our community, women, men, children. Those are important. Absolutely.
Great. Next, what is the biggest challenge that each of you currently face in your positions, and how are you working to meet those challenges?
I feel like for me, the biggest challenge when I took over as the president and CEO of Range Bank was changing the culture. Our culture prior to me taking over my position was really kind of authoritarian, where we had a man that, basically he was the one who made all the decisions at the bank. We didn't have a leadership team per se. And so I feel like it's the most rewarding thing that I've done is developed a great team atmosphere. But honestly, it was the hardest thing to do because I feel like a lot of times, even though people wanted to have a great culture and be involved, I had people a few times say, oh, I kind of liked it when I was just told what to do. So it took a few years, but I think even those people that had said that would say now that they really appreciate the fact that their input is asked for and that they're listened to and they're really a part of the changing of the culture. So it's been a fun journey and it's been a tough one, but it's been well worth it.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one? Biggest challenge and how you are overcoming that challenge?
For us in the College of Business, we had went through a huge culture change. And we're building a new culture, I believe it's good, it's positive, it's healthy. But we have challenges that are external to us that we have to adjust to. Changing curriculum, the declining demographics are a challenge for us. So enrollment. So those are all challenging things that we all recognize and we have to find solutions for. And that's kind of fun. Is we do, it's never the same. So we do have things that we look at. We try to plan, which I think is important, and do some strategic planning. So I think all of that can be challenging, but yet exciting, and provide some new and different opportunities. And it challenges us, and those are good things.
This is an interesting question going back to our conversation about family and finding that balance that's not actually balance. But so how about the other way around? So for instance, postponing becoming a mother or having a family because of the fear of losing your role or your leadership position. She just said she would like to hear thoughts on that. Amanda?
I would always advise not to make a decision like that based out of fear of losing a position. The thing about positions, there's billions of positions around the world. It's your career that you don't want to lose, and you can continue your career when you have a family. So if you're hesitating on starting a family because you're afraid of losing your job, that is very different than going, I want to prioritize my career, so I'm going to postpone having a family now because there's X, Y, and Z I still want to accomplish. I would also ask, if you're afraid of losing your job to have a family, is that the right place for you? Because if you do have a family and you want to have one and they are not a family-friendly company, it's not going to necessarily be a great culture fit after. So I would think about how the company aligns with your own values. But also don't make these huge decisions based out of fear, because I know a number of women who have gotten into their 40s and have made these decisions based out of fear and now don't have the other path to choose. And they're now moving through that part of their life, which is very difficult as well.
I would echo that. And I think that I would recommend a book, What Color is Your Parachute? Because it basically has you reframe, one track, I have to complete XYZ to get to this job, to framing it as what job can I create for me? And so I would echo Amanda 100%. Make whatever leadership role you want out of what is out there. And that sounds a bit abstract, but I think it's 100% right, because you make those connections, you prioritize what you want, and then you go after who's offering it to you. So I think you shouldn't have to choose. I think you should be able to build it all for you.
Absolutely. Great advice. Chelsea says, have any of you ever been verbally knocked down by a superior? And how did you handle it, rebound, and then build your confidence back?
that would be a yes. And that happens. Sometimes, I mean, we all have had not our finest moment. And so when I've been on the receiving end of a dressing down, is what I call it, sometimes maybe it was warranted. Maybe I did something wrong or whatever. Those are difficult. Sometimes it's how the message is delivered instead of the message. I think I try not to do that to people because I don't think it's helpful. And so I always used to look at that and go, I'm going to learn from that and decide how to deliver a message that makes my point in an appropriate way, that isn't demeaning and doesn't knock at a person's confidence. So I think you can always take a situation and learn something from it. And sometimes I also go back to this notion of grace, that sometimes the person that maybe is dressing you down is under a great deal of pressure. They don't really understand what they're doing. They just are in the moment. And we have to show grace to people because sometimes we all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. And sometimes you just can't take things personally. You just have to say, yeah, whatever.
And I would just add, I've experienced, I guess, a dressing down, if you will, by peers, but I've been so fortunate that my superiors along my path have been women. And I've had superiors who are women who seek out building up other women, which is also an advantage because there are certain circumstances where that may not be the case. So I've had incredible mentors who are females who lifted me up, who pushed me towards other roles that I may not have sought because they believed I could do it. And so I have experienced that, like I said, among peers who are males, but I've been fortunate to have women leaders guiding me.
Amanda, did you want to add something?
Sure. Yeah, I've been there. I think it's really important to figure out where this is coming from in terms of like in that moment, were they trying to provide constructive feedback and it didn't land well? Were they trying to do something to help benefit you? Or are they just being mean or completely unprofessional? I've had both. I actually once had a boss tell me that when I asked them if I could move to a different position because I knew it would be a better impact for the team, and this was before my current role at Google, so a different company. He told me that I was great at professional relationships, so he wanted to keep me in my role, even though I was bad at personal ones because of my recent divorce. And in that, I sat there and I utilized my mindfulness techniques. I kind of breathed in and I looked at him and I very directly said, what happens in my personal life does not impact what's happening in my professional life. I would suggest that you give this another thought. And then 2 weeks later, I resigned. And they were hurting because I was holding a very important role and really holding up a big part of the company at that point. And so I think it's also on us to know where the line has to be drawn and give ourselves the credit that we deserve more. And if we have the ability to take those steps and not be afraid of, how people might perceive us by standing up for ourselves and our value. Things aren't going to change until we actually do. And I think we're now in a position, we can actually have a voice to say, what you said to me was inappropriate. And my greatest technique is when someone says something to me that might be like, wait 1 second, is I just go, excuse me, I'm sorry, I missed that. Can you repeat it? And then they'll repeat it. And when they do, they realize how bad it sounds. And usually they backtrack. So I give them a buffer. But yes, I think most women go through a moment where they're just like, what just happened to me? And I think based on where it's coming from, you can then determine if this is something that you should internalize and grow from, or if you should just be like, no, thank you, not today.
Wow, good for you for handling it that way. And I not can't say that I would handle it that way. Maybe I need mindfulness in my life. Um, Great advice, everybody. I think I have time for maybe one or two more questions. I know we've got a lot coming in, so I apologize if I don't get to all these questions. Um, how can I compete with other women in my company without creating cattiness or alienation? I'm assuming Kylie means competing um, with leadership roles or climbing the ladder, that type of a thing. Anyone have advice there?
I really wouldn't worry about competing against somebody else. I mean, it's really about you and where you want to go in the company, and just try to do the best thing that you can for the job and what you have going on in front of you. And I feel like things happen for a reason. And if you're the best person for a position, that will be seen, and you'll continue to grow in the company. So I wouldn't look at it, I guess, as competition. I would just look at it as putting your best foot forward and being confident and doing what you feel is best at the time.
I also want to say too that how you show up is really what's the most important here as well. Definitely think of yourself and, put on those blinders, but be kind. Don't be taking other people out as you're trying to build up your career. The kinder you are and the more supportive you are to those around you, the more allies you have. And in moments, those are the people that are actually going to have your back, because they remembered that like you were supporting them when you were going up maybe for a promotion as they were, and you didn't backstab. I think that's one of the things is that a lot of women, as we grow in our careers, you realize that the more kind you are to other women around you, the stronger your role is, because people then know that they can trust you, and then they become someone within your sphere that's going to be there for you too.
I agree 100%. And I like the way you said that. We talk about that on a probably daily basis, this idea, be kind. It doesn't have to be a competition. In many instances, it's not a zero-sum game where your gain is somebody, it has to be somebody else's loss. We're part of a team. We have the same goals, hopefully. And maybe my area is a little different from some of the others, but we all have the same end game, and that is to deliver a good education to students and a good experience for them. So I would hope we could instill that idea with the people in at least that I work with.
Awesome. Okay, Holly has one last question and then I'm going to close it out. So we might go a few minutes over 8 o'clock, but they're great questions. So any tips for someone that has been the second best person for 3 different leadership roles in the past year? I know I was a great candidate, but the other person had something that gave them an edge. So not disgruntled, but it's hard to not be discouraged. Any tips to mentally keep pushing forward?
I would totally acknowledge that feeling, that discouragement. And you have to use it, if you want, as fuel, to repurpose, to recarve where you're headed. If that's it kind of goes back to our discussion about a role that we think we want and we're going after, but we're willing to sacrifice other parts of our life that we're not necessarily too happy about. Just refocus. Open a window when the door is closed, or whatever that saying is. And so totally acknowledging feeling discouraged, that's absolutely normal, because you want to get there. So I think that it's just an opportunity to refocus and to learn. As an aside to my profession and my academic goals, I set out to raise chickens, and I have failed at certain points because of predators or other things, and it's so discouraging. And I'm not trying to minimize your goals or anything. I'm just trying to reference something right on my forefront, which is it's very discouraging, and I feel that I've failed in that aspect. But it's a woman that I've learned from as to her skills in homesteading and things like that. She always takes those failures as an opportunity to learn, and I love her attitude. She's certainly discouraged, but she absorbs everything she can out of that experience and moves on. And I absolutely love that, and I want to be more like her. So if that's any help, just keep going.
My piece of advice is, if these are internal, like if you're already working at the company and you have you're trying to get this leadership position and you've been denied 3 times, it's a great opportunity to sit down with your manager or some fellow colleagues and have a discussion of like, this is my goal, this is why, and I need feedback to figure out what's happening here. Like, how do I actually get there? I think a lot of us are afraid to get feedback. We don't actively seek it out because we don't want to hear the hard things. But if you're able to get feedback from somebody who is great at constructive feedback, it is the most valuable tool. And I am sitting in the position I'm sitting in because I've had great feedback in my life that I have taken seriously and applied and grown from. So I would not see any of this as failure, but an opportunity to see where you need to like put some more focus and then really lean into it. And before you know it, things will shift either with that position or something else, and that momentum will grow and you will get to that next level. But it doesn't come without taking those tough moments and like building on top of them and really growing from them.
Great. All right, we have hit 8 o'clock, so I'm going to close it out with one last question. Being a woman in a leadership position, what do you feel like is your biggest reward? And I'll let everybody answer if they'd like, and then we'll close out. Anyone want to start? Biggest reward. Amber, you want to take it first? Put you on the spot?
Certainly. That is such a great question. I think my biggest reward from being a woman in a leadership position thus far is feeling like the women who are up and coming, the young ladies and otherwise, have access to me, and I can hopefully help in any way possible. And specifically, I'm thinking of a program I assisted with last year in our high school, which was like a model judiciary competition. And, you know, young women in the high school who may have interest in law and government grab a hold of these competitions and embrace this path that's certainly challenging, certainly can be discouraging at times, but to totally just invest all in them. And it feels like a reward because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of discouragement a lot of times, but to just feel like you can bring other women up with you, young peers or otherwise, is such a great reward, and I'm enjoying that.
Great. Roxanne, you want to go next?
Sure. I feel like my biggest reward has been every year I go around to all of my offices and I meet in small groups with my team, and just hearing the positive things that they say. I mean, I started this 5 years ago, and the change in the comments that I've had from my employees, just honest, open feedback from them on how much the bank has changed throughout that 5-year period of time, has really been my biggest reward, because I just think that having a great place to work for my employees, and I know that if I have a great place to work, I know they're going to take care of our customers, and then I know that our shareholders are going to be taken care of. So that's been really rewarding, just to hear the feedback from people that work at the bank.
Amazing. Amanda, any last?
Yeah, my biggest reward, it's kind of surreal, I think. Actually, every morning I kind of wake up and pinch myself. There's a lot that I'm grateful for, but I think the biggest reward is being able to go back home. Like, I grew up in the UP. When I go back home, I always go to the K-12 that I graduated from, and I give back, and being able to talk to students and see themselves in me and me in themselves, and know that like so much is possible. They can work on Emmy award-winning children's television shows. They can build technology for millions of people, and really know that there's so much potential and opportunity out there. But I think the biggest reward is how many people I impact every single day, and knowing that that foundation was built at Northern and being so proud of it. And it's just, yeah, it's an amazing feeling to have in the morning.
Great. Carol?
So my greatest reward also is to be around young people and to be around amazing professors who really care about what they're doing and have the opportunity to impact all of them in a positive way. It's such, I say it all the time, I have the greatest job on campus, and it's such a privilege. It really is, and it's an honor. And to be able, for me to come back to the school that I graduated from, and to be a teacher was the greatest job. But now to be the leader of our college and work with amazing provost, amazing president, it's just, I pinch myself on a daily basis. And you're also, you realize that people are watching you and people see what you're doing. So it's one of those things where you go, I'm just so blessed and grateful, and I don't take it for granted. So I'm willing to put the time in and work hard. So I just feel very, very grateful. Northern has been really good to me, and I'm just grateful.
Amazing. Carol Cindy J says you were one of my favorite teachers at NMU. Ended on that high note. Well,
So
thank
that
you all
makes me
so
feel-
much.
That's
You
awesome.
all
Thank you.
Yeah, you all are amazing and inspiring, and it was a pleasure to have had this conversation with you all this evening. So thank you for sharing your insight. Thank you for sharing your advice. And thank you for staying connected to NMU. I think it's been, I mean, it's really great to hear where you all have been able to go, and that you still, look back at your time at NMU and realize that it helped you get there. So thank you for sharing your experiences, and thank you for joining us. Thank you everybody for joining online as well. We're continuing the series in April. Visit our website for some upcoming events and follow us on social media to keep updated. We'll be sending out a short survey as well for you to complete, so you can tell us any upcoming topics that you might want to hear about for this series. Also choosing one winner to win an alumni t-shirt tonight too, so keep an eye on your email. This also will be recorded. If you want to share, that will be in the follow-up email that I send tomorrow too, so feel free to share it. And just keep in touch with us, and we really appreciate your time this evening. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.